Hello friends, this is Carrie and welcome back to I Like Reddit channel. Today our stories are all out of the Prorevenge subreddit. Let's begin. Our first post is by Calc Teacher. Revenge on a lowlife landlord who first deprives us of heat and later tries to keep our security deposit. I was a kid back in the 80s, 2 years out of college when I moved into an apartment by the New Jersey shore. When the cold weather arrived, there was always a few days when the apartment was cold. We would tell the super and the heat would start arriving. One year, the heat started decreasing in February, and inside the apartment it was like 50 degrees and we had to start wearing our coats. We told the super about it and nothing happened this time. We wrote the landlord about it and still nothing. So we checked with our attorney and learned about warranty of habitability and withholding of rents. So yet another certified letter to the landlord and we started withholding our rent. He filed a motion to evict us. We answered with a Marini defense, depositing the withheld monies to the court. The judge finds in our favor for all the money that's been withheld. We continue to live there because there just aren't many other options as we save for a home. Flash forward to living there for 6 years. On the last lease, because we were about to buy a home, we write in a clause that we can break the lease with 45 days notice in writing, similar to his 45-day clause. They don't notice it because it's slightly obscured on the top left of page 2, so they sign it and return it to me. So in the middle of the lease, we give them 45 days written notice, make the rent payments, and leave. They don't return our deposit, so we sue for it, demanding double. They sue us for the remainder of 6 months' rent and refuse to return our security deposit. This is no longer small claims court. We proceed without an attorney anyway. They are expensive. We arrive at the courthouse and the court forces a round of arbitration. The arbitrator says we will lose in front of a judge and just pay the remainder of the rent. We refuse and wait for the judge. While waiting, the landlord's attorney drops by and asks why we didn't take the arbitrator's advice. So we tell him about the clause we wrote in, and he states he saw it too, and since it was crossed out, it's not part of the deal. We show him our copy of the lease, where it's not crossed out. His face goes as white as a sheet. He makes a call to the landlord, who then offers to properly break the lease with no penalty and return our security deposit in full. We refuse, and we show him the certified letter stating that we would have accepted the deal up until yesterday, but that if you force us to come down to court, we want double damage of the improper withholding of our security deposit. He tries again to reach out to the landlord, but no luck this time. We go see the judge. He looks at both the leases and calls their attorney to the bench. The judge takes our lease and thrusts it towards the attorney and says, "This is the lease in force." Their attorney starts walking around the courtroom like a chick with his head cut off. While I try to laugh as quietly as possible, the judge fines for us for double damages. We receive nothing for a week and go back to the courthouse where the clerk says they should pay the judgment immediately and tells us about chattel execution and gives us that form. A couple of weeks pass and a check appears from the landlord. Another month passes and we get a call from the court. They have our money. I told them that the landlord sent the check a while back and so we're good. She tells us that we should have informed the court that we got our money to stop the chattel execution from occurring. The court sent a sheriff to their offices and confiscated their equipment and sold it at auction to satisfy the judgment. They said, don't worry, they will just return the money to the landlord. That is the revenge. Getting the money and having them experience abrupt seizing of their assets at their place of business and having it sold at auction, and then having the money returned to them. Justice at last. Anyway, on to our final story. If you're enjoying my content so far, please put some heart emojis in the comment section below. Our final story is by Anima Animus. Landlord wants to sue us for hurricane damage. I lived briefly in Florida about a decade ago, which is where I met my partner. It wasn't long after we met and moved in together due to my not so great living situation, renting a room from a friend who was so addicted to opioids she could barely function, and her enabler husband. We found a nice little 2-bedroom house that was owned by an elderly couple who lived just a few blocks away. Everything was okay. We did find cockroaches after we moved in, which was quite shocking, as I'm extremely clean and I never had roaches before, and when we told the landlord about them, they told us that they weren't roaches, that they were palmetto bugs. FYI, they're the same thing. And refused to have an exterminator come. Bad sign number one. Then a hurricane blew in. This was Florida after all. It was only a category 1 or a category 2, I don't really remember, but was substantial damage to the roof and a lot of water had gotten in. Being northerners, we had no real idea how to prepare properly, and the landlord told us to just lower the hurricane shutters. So that was all we did. It wasn't long after we had mold growing on our walls, especially in the laundry room. Reported it to the landlord and they told us to just wash it down with bleach water. So we did, and it came right back. So it was a constant cleaning process. When we complained, we were told that was what life was like in Florida. They also came and took a look at the roof. From the yard, they told us, "You two are strapping young men. You could just go up there and fix it. Just let us know when you're done." Yeah, no. Then another hurricane blew in. Again, it was only a category 1 or 2. But this time we had windows broken during the storm, and since our roof was still not repaired or even tarp from the last storm, our carpets and furniture were soaked. Here comes the black mold again. But this time, not only on our walls, but on our carpet and furniture too. I spent days outside with our dog. We were sleeping in my partner's office. Our landlords again told us to clean it up with bleach water, and the damage was our fault since we didn't prepare well and hadn't fixed the roof ourselves. So we called the city and had an inspector come by. He walked in and balked at what he found. Black mold all over the carpet and walls. The roach population had a little boom, and he could tell, while looking at the roof, that it was in need of repair prior to the storm, and it still hadn't been tarped. The best part was when I was standing in our open doorway with the inspector just inside. The old man approached us, talking about how we better have the roof repaired and how they're going to charge us for the repairs, the carpet replacement, and the mold removal. Cue the city worker who came around the corner and asked him if he was the owner. He said, "Yes," and the inspector told him that he was condemning the house because it was not inhabitable, and it was not our responsibility as tenants to make or pay for the repairs. He also recommended that we should be released from the lease. Never seen an old man wobble away so quickly. Later that night, his wife called raising holy hell about how she was going to sue us for damages and how we were not getting our money back. She also said she had removed the condemned/danger sign that was placed over the door. It was embarrassing. People knew it was our property. But she made a mistake. She wrote a strongly worded letter about how we were taking advantage of the elderly, how all the damage was our fault since we didn't do any of the repairs, and how she would not release us from our lease, and how many lawsuits she was going to hit us with. After contacting the inspector who saw our house, who took another trip to the house to replace the sign, we turned all of this in. He laughed and sighed and said he knew exactly how to handle it since he saw this all the time after hurricanes. If they actually sued, he would testify in our favor, since what they were doing was highly illegal. He then told us he was going to pay them a little visit and make sure the letter got into the hands of the right people, as well as how he had to replace the sign. Another thing she admitted in the letters. About a week later, we got a really pleasant call from the landlady saying that we were such wonderful tenants and how she was refunding our security deposit and how she was graciously going to let us out of our lease and not pursue any charges or any rent for the last few months, which she had refused to pay since we could not live there. If we needed help finding a new place, to let her know, and she would refer us to some of her friends who owned property too. Haha, nope. We learned, because we had been watching the situation. The house had to be gutted, completely remodeled. We actually parked up the road with some takeout and watched the crew haul out sheetrock and carpet. They could have saved themselves thousands of dollars if they just called a roofer and someone to clean up the mold instead of making us call the city and have the house condemned, and then do whatever they did to make them change their minds on everything else. Still wish I could have been there when they were confronted by the inspector the second time. The first was glorious. I think the important lesson for both stories is it's important for renters to know their rights and know what the landlord can and can't do. And what if they're, not heating the apartment, that's illegal. Or forcing a tenant to roof their own apartment when that's actually the landlord's job. Or making them live in squalor with the black mold and the roaches. I mean, all of those things are illegal, and it's important that renters know that they don't have to put up with that stuff. Anyway, that's all the stories I have today. Please stop on by Reddit to show the OP some love and an upvote. Links to the original stories will be in the description box below. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the bell notification to let you know when I've uploaded new content. Thank you for watching and have a great day.